The very first thing that I wrote down as we talked about doing this episode was prepare, 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 rehearse, 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 but don't memorize. So my process is that I start kind of with a brain dump. And this is still part of the preparation. It sounds like it's part of the kind of the writing, but it's also preparing me for the actual presentation. Because through this process, I am now seeing what is it that I really want to put in the presentation. And that's sticking in my mind. So when I get up and I present this information, I don't need the PowerPoint because it's already up here. It's been up here for 6 months. Leading a team can feel like a roller coaster. Big climbs, sudden drops, and moments where you wonder why you got on the ride in the first place. Hi, my name is Matt Heller, founder of Performance Optimist Consulting, and I take great pride in helping leaders and teams stay focused and performing at their best. Through engaging keynotes, hands-on workshops, and practical coaching, I help leaders turn fear into confidence and discomfort into momentum. This means fewer breakdowns and more breakthroughs. If your organization is ready to start building real forward motion, it's time to take action and make better performance and growth your main attraction. Visit performanceoptimist.com/attractionpros for an exclusive offer.
Welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and challenges facing the attractions industry today.
We chat with some of the top leaders in the field and provide resources that will help develop your career in this great industry.
I am Josh Liebman. I am obsessed with the guest experience and helping attractions make that their top priority for success.
And I'm Matt Heller. I am passionate about organizational effectiveness, leadership development, and employee engagement.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and get ready for the Attraction Pros podcast.
Hey, Josh, how are you?
Hey, Matt, I'm doing fine. Yeah. How are you?
I am fantastic.
Yes, I'm Burr. Thank you very much. A little further north than you are.
You are. At last checking, when recording this episode, it was 13 degrees Fahrenheit outside. What is it for you?
I checked earlier. It's coming up a little bit. It's 11, feels like 0. So we're in the black at least.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. We're both in the Burr-tastic area. But I have a question for you.
Okay.
Have you ever gotten up in front of a group of people to speak and present information?
Yes. Why do you ask?
Well, as you know, one of my goals for 2026 is to help more people kind of express their opinions and ideas, get on the IAPA stage, get on the AIMS stage, get on the Florida Attractions Association stage. I know that when we did our resolutionary episode, I was really focusing, on IAPA. But the more I think about it, the more people can get up and speak and share their ideas in all these different platforms, I think the better. So yes, I focus a lot on IAPA in that resolutionary episode, but any time that you want to get up and speak, I'm here to help. And so actually you brought this up. You said, why don't we do an episode where we give some professional speaking tips? Since you've done it quite a bit, I've done it quite a bit. I've never actually had what you might call quote unquote lessons in it. I know you have studied stand-up comedy, which I think is amazing because one of the things that I, really refer back to is watching a lot of stand-up comedians when I think about my kind of delivery style. So I thought it was a great idea. You brought it up, so I hope you think it's a great idea to spend a little time giving people some professional and public speaking tips. So do you want to start it off and give us your first one?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to this. This is something I've kind of kept a little bit of a running list going over time. Whenever I think of something, I'm just like, oh, jot that down. Really only for the most part, to help myself, but also knowing that this can be something that can be imparted on others as well. So I've been doing public speaking for a little less than a decade. So I will say far less than you have. And I will say a lot of my early days was watching you speak and be on stage and be like, wow, the energy that Matt has and the way that he's just got the dynamic with the room that was something that was very refreshing and very much an alternative to say death by PowerPoint, as some people will call it, of clicking through the slides, showing graphs, showing data, reading off the bullet points. So the first thing that I've put down on my list is build your presentation in your head before you build your slide deck. And the kind of sub bullet points of this is really that if you've got a PowerPoint or a keynote or whatever the other any of the other platforms to present, you lead the slide deck, not the other way around. In fact, you should be able to give your entire presentation without slides. The first time that I spoke at a conference was, you mentioned Florida Attractions Association, 2017. So less than 9 years ago was my first time really speaking on stage at a conference. And when my session was accepted, I initially had this feeling of enthusiasm, but also very much fear, which I think is a common thread when talking about public speaking. And at the time, I was also kind of driving from clients to. So I was doing a lot of driving. I was spending a lot of time on the road, and so I'd be on the highway on these long drives, and I would turn down the radio, wouldn't listen to any music, and I would just talk. And in doing that, I built my entire 75-minute presentation in my head. And then I thought about, all right, what are the visual cues that I want to give to the audience at certain points of it? I then built the PowerPoint from the presentation. And I think that is a reverse approach to what a lot of people take, of starting with a blank slate of a PowerPoint and saying, all right, here's all my bullet points. Now I need to think about how I want to talk about it. I do the other way around.
I love that. And excuse me. And I love the fact that you talk about doing the presentation without your slides. Your slides should really be the emphasis of what you want to say. It should support what you want to say. It shouldn't be everything that you want to say, right?
Yeah.
And I appreciate you also bringing up death by PowerPoint, because that's something that makes me want to poke my eyes out when I see somebody doing that. So I love that. I also do the same thing where I practice a lot in the car as I'm driving or walking my dog. I do that a lot as well. And actually, this is something based on what you just said, I want to bring up. It was a point that I was going to bring up a little bit later, but it's about editing your presentation. Right. And I don't mean like the physical editing of the PowerPoint or, any materials. It's editing in your mind what really needs to be in that presentation. Because what happens a lot of times when I'm talking in the car, or I'm, kind of practicing before the actual presentation, is that I will go through things, and there are things that absolutely stick and they make sense and they should be in the presentation. But there's sometimes I go off on these little rabbit trails and I'm like, that doesn't really fit. That doesn't really go with the point I'm trying to make. So I think editing is actually a really important part of the process. So even if you do start with a PowerPoint, even if you do, kind of start with the information laid out, if you do kind of the brain dump and get everything out there, that doesn't necessarily mean that everything needs to go in the presentation. One thing that I've definitely have learned to edit over the years are activities. I've been fortunate to see some great presenters and borrow some great activities from lots of different people. And they do a great job of energizing the group, and they can really make a point. But if you can't draw you can't connect the dots between why you did that activity and the point you're trying to make, then either don't use the activity or do a different activity. Because I want to say there's nothing worse, although I'm sure there is, in the presenting world, where you're taking such a left turn to do this activity, get people up and moving around. But if it doesn't relate to the point you're trying to make, then we have to edit it out. And I know that's tough for especially new presenters. Oh, I've got this great idea. Okay, but how does it fit back to the original idea? I actually really like the fact that IAPA asks for 3 learning goals in their submission process, because it really forces you to go back and say, what are the most important things that you want your audience to get out of this? And if you've got those 3 learning goals in there, okay, it's about this, this, and this, great. In the 60 or 90 or 20 minutes that I have, I've got to make sure that everything I'm doing fits under under those learning goals, and that takes editing.
Hmm. So is edit your presentation? Is that your first bullet point?
It's going to be the first one that I mentioned. It's not the first one that was on my list, but based on what you said, I thought it was a good transition.
All right, excellent. Yeah, I like that. And you make a good point about the learning objectives with IAPA because that forces you to think about, okay, what is this actually about? I give them the paragraph summary. How do I distill it down into, can I do this in 3 bullet points? Or if I'm at, 7 to 9 bullet points, this is too wide range of a
Yes.
presentation. Narrow it
Yes.
in a little bit and then think about, all right, how am I going to articulate this? And you mentioned 20, 60, or 90. Those are 3 very different presentations, whether it's 20 minutes, 60 minutes, or 90 minutes. And I don't know about you, but I feel whether it's anxiety or I feel more nervous about a 20-minute presentation than I do about a 90-minute presentation.
I think it's because of the amount of information you probably want to share. It obviously takes much, much, much more editing to get that out there in a way that is palatable and exciting and engaging in 20 minutes than you can in a 90-minute presentation, right?
Yeah,
For me, at
give me the
least,
facts. Yeah.
for me, I like to incorporate a lot of activities and things of that nature. And those, I think I heard somebody refer to it as a sponge at one point, where you can elongate the time or you can contract the time based on what you need in that moment. So you can make that activity last 5 minutes or 10 minutes, depending on what it is that you're looking for. But in that 20-minute, like the Edu Talks at IAPA, it's a much more concise delivery of information, and that can be really challenging.
Yeah. Okay, so what's another one on your list?
So, kind of similar to what you talked about, the very first thing that I wrote down as we talked about doing this episode was prepare, 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 rehearse, 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 but don't memorize. So, going back to what you said about preparation, I have I guess, a process that helps me do exactly what you said in terms of building the program in my head while also utilizing notes and utilizing the PowerPoint as tools, but not as the final be all of the presentation, right? So my process is that I start kind of with a brain dump. And this is still part of the preparation. It sounds like it's part of the kind of the writing, but it's also preparing me for the actual presentation because through this process, I am now seeing what is it that I really want to put in the presentation. And that's sticking in my mind. So when I get up and I present this information, I don't need the PowerPoint because it's already up here. It's been up here for 6 months. And
Yeah.
because of that, because it started when I started putting notes on a piece of paper, now it's ingrained up here and I can go through the presentation and I don't need the slides. And I've probably mentioned this before, but one of the reasons that I book the hotel that I book at IAPA is because they have a big parking lot out back that is typically pretty empty, and I can walk around back there and do my entire presentation without my slides. And I recognize in my own preparation that when I can do that, when I feel comfortable with my transitions, when I feel comfortable with the points I want to make, and not forgetting the activities and the whole 9 yards, when I can do that, then I'm ready. So
Yeah.
that's all part of the preparation process. So I get all the notes down. I then start putting it into a bit of a PowerPoint. And then I practice. Before the PowerPoint's quote unquote done, I start practicing it out loud. Because what I find is like you do in the car, I'm starting to say things that I didn't think of before. And I may say them in a really cool way, just off the cuff. And I want to capture that so that I can remember that and do that again. And that's, again, all part of that preparation process. But what I found is that, and this is for me, if I try to memorize things, it just comes off as way too robotic.
Yeah.
So, as much as I'm preparing, as much as I'm rehearsing, there's still room for, you know, different ways to go about something, or an input from the audience, or any sort of left turn that we might take. There's still room for that because I haven't memorized something, and I don't have to say, oh wait, let me go back to that slide and reframe what I was going to say and say it again, say it again in those exact same words.
One of the benefits of all this too is this allows you to kind of morph in with the audience as well and have a better dynamic with them. If you're memorizing your presentation and you've got your PowerPoint, your bullet points and your data points from that and you're clicking through it and you prepared, you rehearsed, and then you memorized your entire talk, like you said, it's robotic if anything comes out of whack. If somebody asks a question, could be a very valid question you might have an answer to, that could throw you off your game entirely versus you know what your talking points are, you've rehearsed it, you've talked about the way that you're going to deliver it, but you're also very adaptable as well, and then you're ultimately removing a barrier between the stage and the audience.
Can I share a little pet peeve?
Sure.
When people consistently refer to what we do as giving a talk,
Okay.
because I know you don't look at it that way specifically. You look at it as a conversation with people, with the people that are in the audience. I do as well. I don't look at it as I'm going to stand up here and, just relay information and expect you to get something out of it. I want this to be an interchange. I want this to be a conversation. I've often said that I try to have a one-on-one conversation with 80 different people versus me having a conversation with 80 people, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So I'm really trying to engage with the audience and not just do something where I am up there, espousing my grand knowledge to everyone through my talk, right? I don't know why that just rubs me the wrong way. So I wanted to share that little pet peeve.
I agree 100%. And I actually rearranged the order of my talking points here because the next one, you just kind of give a really good segue into it. Uh, get the audience talking as much as possible.
Yes.
And so that could be question and answer, it could be fill in the blank, etc. So Matt, when I've seen you speak, you are the speaker that gets up and says, "Good morning. Come on, I can't hear you. We can do better than that. Good morning." Right? And it gets the audience talking. There's some people who've been like, "Oh, it's the good morning speaker," with whoever it might be. It's a common type thing. And I had this realization in the last couple of years of why does a speaker do that? First, why do you do it?
I do it for the energy.
Yeah.
I think that's what I feed off of when you talk to get the audience talking. I want to know that they're with me, so I think that's probably why I do it.
And I think that goes in line with kind of this realization of when you're on stage, it's really lonely. You are very lonely when you are on stage and you've got the spotlight on you and everyone in the room that you said, whether 80 people, it could be 100 people, it could be 400 people, they are looking at you and they are waiting for you to do the thing, to impart the wisdom, right? What is it to do all the things that you just said are the pet peeve of I'm going to stand here and impart all of my knowledge onto you versus that, hey, we're actually going to have a conversation. Whether it is that good morning, get the energy feed from the audience. I'll sometimes throw out some questions where I'll just give a fill in the blank. I'll just stop talking and wait for the audience to chime in, and then I'll feed off of that. I'll go back and forth with that. Uh, I realize that's not just for the audience. That the speaker needs that.
Hmm.
As the speaker, we need to hear that you're there, not just moose in the headlight, locked in. You're going to spend an hour without blinking, just staring right at me. We're going to have a dialogue a little bit together. So get the audience talking as much as possible, whether it is that, "Good morning, come on, I can't hear you. I said good morning," or the question and answer, the fill in the blank, that then you create this rhythm and routine that breaks from the, I'm going to sit in this chair, in this room, and watch somebody give a talk.
Well, and I think that also sets the expectation. I know we talk a lot about expectations from a business perspective, but when you think about it from a presentation perspective, it sets the expectation that, to your point, they're not just going to sit there and watch the PowerPoint and look at me and look at their phone and things like that. Like there's an expectation that they're going to be challenged. They're going to maybe do something that is outside their comfort zone, and actually, get involved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. What's your next one?
My next one is kind of, tease off of what you just talked about. It's to use your nervousness to your advantage. Because to your point, being up on stage can be a very nerve-wracking, overwhelming position, which as I've been talking to people, I put my link out there for people to sign up to talk to me about speaking at IAPA or other conferences. And one of the biggest things that people say is, I'm nervous. I'm nervous. And they say, "Do you get nervous?" I said, "Absolutely, I get nervous. I get nervous because I care. I want to do well. I'm pretty sure I'm going to do well based on my previous experience and my history, but that doesn't mean that I don't prepare. That doesn't mean that I don't still put everything into this so that it can go well. It's because I care." And so when I say use your nervousness to your advantage, we have to remember that nervousness is just energy. Right? It's our body saying to us, there's something going on. We're heightening our energy so that we can get you ready for whatever it is that you're about to do, right? Whether it's talk to a team member, whether it's to talk to a guest, whether it's to do a presentation, it's your body's way of kind of ramping up your energy. And so what I see a lot of people do sometimes is they'll be sitting in the back looking at their notes, kind of going through their presentation. And I've done that before. And I'm like, I'm not actually looking at this. This is not helping me whatsoever. So I'm like, what can I do to better embrace my nervousness? So what I do that I think also helps to set the expectation for the audience is as people are coming in, especially at an IAPA program where people are kind of trickling in as they are, getting checked in by the ambassador and finding their seat, is I just go around and talk to people. Like this is what I have found to be the best way to harness the energy that I have is to go talk to people, shake their hand, look them in the eye, ask them where they're from. If they're somebody I know, catch up a little bit, just that interaction that I'm having with people. And often the ambassador or the liaison in the session says, "Matt, we have to start." Right? Because I'm out there talking to people so much.
You've already started. It's
I've
going.
already, but and that's part of it too, is that now I'm setting the expectation that this is going to be a conversation. So yes, I'm going to be the one up on stage, but we're going to continue the conversation that you and I had in the very beginning. So as a speaker, as someone who gets up in front of people, you are going to be nervous. You're going to have the sweaty palms. Your heart's going to race. You're going to have a pit in your stomach. There's no doubt about that. But what can you do to harness that energy? I think, at least for me, standing in the corner looking at my presentation is the least effective way to harness that energy. Get out with the people. If you are presenting with other people, maybe even talking to them would help. But there's got to be a way to release that energy so that when you are now doing the actual presentation, you're not trying to kind of bring that energy back because now it's almost too much, if that makes sense. So you're going to be nervous. Lean into that nervousness.
Mm-hmm. I wrote down a few things. You brought a few things to mind. Talking to people coming in I would say this is a bridge for getting the audience talking. Now, once you go on stage, everybody knows you. There's this, like I said, that invisible barrier that was kind of removed from there because you've been able to strike up that conversation, and it makes it easier then to walk on stage. Mm-hmm. And what this does, and I don't know. I don't know if this is like the best phrase or the way to put it, but it takes away this like rock star mentality of like the speaker is hidden until they're introduced. And once they're introduced, now they come on stage and now I'm here and now you're just seeing and hearing me for the first time. You flip that around and be like, if it is a rock star, they're meeting the rock star right when they come in. Be like, "Hey, can't wait to see you perform," and what it might be, which is totally not what it's like when you go see, a concert, you go see a rock concert, or like anything of just like, okay, you were waiting to get a glimpse of them. No, you're right there. You're in with it. Another thing with nervousness too, and this is just one thing that I've noticed is in my very early days of whether I was speaking at conferences or delivering workshops for clients, it really kicked in hard. I would be driving to the client, or I would be in the hall right before the session started, and I was like, "Why am I doing this? I should turn around at this point. Am I past the point of no return? Well, what? Like I should not have signed up for this. I should not have sold this deal with the client, and gotten into my head from that standpoint." In time, that has faded away substantially, and part of that is just putting in the reps. And now I'm walking in, I'm feeling lighter, I'm feeling more casual. It doesn't take away from the emphasis of the content that I'm delivering, but my comfort has increased substantially. So this is definitely a beyond your comfort zone type of thing. I read an article several years ago, and this helped. It was one of the best ways to eliminate the nervousness right when you walk on stage is to change it around to excitement. And this is a mind over matter type thing. If you are standing right there and you're at the base of the stairs about to go up, to just start thinking to yourself, I'm so excited to get on stage, and the nervous that you force the nervousness out of your system, out of your body, and say, no, this is really exciting. And then the second you walk up, the second you start talking, a lot of those nerves just disappear. They're just gone. And now you're feeling the energy that you created for yourself.
Well, and if I could just touch on that really quickly, the word that comes to mind is confidence, right? When you put in the reps, when you are feeling that much more comfortable walking on stage, when you know kind of the audience and you've kind of established a relationship there, you've got a confidence that is absolutely infectious. Right. So when you walk on stage and you are confident about what you're talking about, people will feed off of that. When you walk into a presentation with a client, people will feed off of that. That's why people say, even if you're not quite confident, if you make yourself feel that way, right, and you feel like you're supposed to be there, then people will think you're supposed to be there.
Yeah.
So I think that confidence is really something that is, it is built over time, but it's so critical to creating a bond with the audience.
100%.
Yeah. What's one of your next ones?
So my next one here comes from I wrote this down a while back, and it was after a client said this to me that they really enjoyed my presentations because of the amount of aha moments that come with it. And so I wrote down this is stack as many aha moments as possible. And when I break that down and think about, well, what is an aha moment? It is the light bulb that goes off. It acknowledges, I would say it respects the intelligence of everyone in the room, of everyone who's in here is probably way smarter than I am. So my goal is to reinforce everything that you know and believe, but also I want to give you something where you're walking away, you'll say, I had never thought of it that way before. And so when I break down what is this aha moment, there's the anchor statement. And the anchor statement should go against conventional wisdom. It should be spiky. I heard somebody say it doesn't need to be controversial, but it should be something that is a little bit different than what most people are used to hearing. I gave a presentation, I gave an edu talk at IAPA a couple of years ago, where I said, "Stop telling your employees to smile." And I could hear like a collective gasp, across everyone in the room. And then I supported it with why specifically that standard in and of itself is not highly effective. And then after a couple of minutes, everyone was bought into it. So one of the ways you could do this is you've got your anchor statement, something that's, against conventional wisdom. Like I said, your guests aren't complaining enough. That was the title of a presentation I gave at IAPA a couple of years ago. That right there, your guests aren't complaining enough. That goes against conventional wisdom. That is spiky. I then use research to support that and say less than 4% of people who have some kind of service failure or friction point are actually going to speak up about it. That means that every complaint that you get, that guest is speaking on behalf of themselves and 25 to 26 other people who didn't complain. And then you can support it with an entertaining anecdote. So I'll say, think about your own complaining behavior for a second. You got your favorite brand of toothpaste. You run out of toothpaste. You go to the store. You pick up a different brand because they're out of your brand. You don't like it as much. By a show of hands, who's going to call up the number on the box and say, "Hi, I just want to let you know I tried your toothpaste. It wasn't very minty fresh. I'm not going to be buying it anymore." There you go. We wouldn't do it. There might be one person in the room who does that, or one out of 25, 26 people who do. And I'll say, there you go. It supports the research that says your guests aren't complaining enough. And then they're walking away thinking, my guests aren't complaining enough. I did not expect to be thinking that when I walked into this session. So stack as many of those aha moments as possible.
And I would say, like, this also gets back to one of your first points about get the audience talking, because I think some of those aha moments can also come from them, right? So when they are starting to brainstorm with their team members, or they are sharing something, like I know I've had this happen where people say, "Well, I never really thought about it this way, but this is what I'm saying," and they're like, "Oh, now like it's the light bulb that they turned on in their own mind," right? Which is so much more impactful too when they go back to actually implement it because they're like, now it's my idea. So I think if you can, present things that are, contrary to how people think, but you're getting them to think, and then also another tactic is to get them to bring it up. I think both of those ways to stack those aha moments are great ways to allow people to leave with really practical solutions. And if I could just say one thing about any of these sessions, right? The end goal should not be that they're walking out of there saying, well, that was fun, but I didn't really get anything out of it,
Yeah.
right? People should be able to say, here is the one or two nuggets or three nuggets that I got out of this that I know that I can implement or I can bring back to my facility right away and apply. So that should be the ultimate goal, not necessarily to have a great PowerPoint and a woohoo presentation, but it's got to have some practical takeaways.
Which ties in with, oh, we did some fun activities in that session. Okay, where do I go from here?
Okay, but
And
now,
your point
yeah.
about giving them kind of the ability to create the wow moment, to extend this light bulb example, you are giving them the light bulb in the box that they can then take in and screw in and have it illuminate themselves.
Now, is it a three-way light bulb?
Could be.
Could be. Or it's an LED, or we could go down that rabbit trail, but we don't need to. Are we ready to go into another one?
Let's hear it.
All right. So we've been talking about, kind of your style, my style, kind of the outgoing, embracing that style piece of it. But I also want people to recognize the authenticity that they bring may not be that enthusiastic, kind of wah kind of speaker, right? That may not be you. You know, that's okay. I have seen many, many engaging speakers who are passionate about what they're talking about, who are very knowledgeable, but they don't run around the stage, right? They don't, you know, have the quote unquote high energy that a lot of people have, but they speak from the heart. They speak very authentically, and they are delivering a message that they know a lot about and they're passionate about. So, as you are thinking about, am I, someone that can get up on a stage and speak, and you're looking at other people and saying, well, that person's really enthusiastic. I don't have that kind of energy. It's okay. Bring your own kind of energy, embrace your own speaking style. That may take a little time for you to kind of develop and understand what that is. But again, I've seen so many people that can captivate an audience with speaking quietly, right? And that also goes into kind of the ebb and flow of a presentation. You don't want it to be up at a 10 the entire time. Even me, who I like to have the high energy, there's times when I bring it down, right? And I learned this from one of my very first leaders, Tom Morrow at Canopy Lake Park. He said, and yes, that's his name, Tom Morrow. Yes, it's tomorrow. But anyway, he would say, a presentation has to be like a roller coaster. It's got ebbs and flows. You've got to, kind of lead up to a big aha moment and then kind of bring people down and then let them think about it, let them reflect, and then kind of do that a couple of different times throughout the presentation. So it's not just a static, kind of one note kind of presentation. Even if that one note is high energy the entire time, people still need some time to reflect and they need that time to kind of think about things. So I guess the point here is embrace your own speaking style, be authentic to who you are, and know that whether you are high energy or you're mid energy or you're low key intense, that they can all be effective presentation styles.
I agree. And I like that you brought that up of just being your authentic self extends onto the stage. There is
Yeah.
no one specific persona of this is a public speaker. It does not need to be the high energy, that high enthusiasm. A couple years ago at IAPA at the leadership breakfast, I saw Gordon Hartman. He was the keynote speaker, founder of Morgan's Wonderland,
Yeah.
and he stood at the podium the entire time and stood there and he spoke, and it was one of the most powerful speeches I think I've ever seen. I mean, his message, came across just so passionately. And I was standing there, and I was sitting there watching it. I was just like, He's standing at the, he's not bouncing all over the stage. He's not, pointing at the audience or kind of doing any quirky gimmicks. He stood there. He delivered the entire thing in his authentic tone, and it was so powerful. So that's what that tip reminded me of seeing that, of being very different from what conventional wisdom might be. Of you need to be David Lee Roth on your stage and command the audience in that way.
Great example.
Thank
Great
you.
example. Yeah. Yeah. What's your next one?
Okay, well, we've talked about humor a little bit. You mentioned that I took some classes in stand-up comedy. I did it at Second City in Chicago, and I did it specifically because I wanted to improve my public speaking skills. And I could have taken a public speaking course, but I thought this would be more enjoyable for me to be able to do that. And on the first day of class, I can't remember if I've shared this on the podcast or not, but we all, kind of did our icebreaker introduction and talked about why we were taking the class. And I said, I do a lot of workshops. I speak at conferences a lot. I do keynotes from time to time, and I want to, continue doing that. And once several years ago, after doing a workshop, part of the feedback from the client came back, and they used the word entertaining in it. They said it was educational, it was informative, and it was entertaining. And I really want to lean into that. Because that's the industry I'm in, of just we are in an entertaining industry. And also I feel like people enjoy it more. I feel like the content resonates more. And overall, there's just a stronger memory of the presentation and stronger takeaways that lead to action from it. And so my teacher, he really leaned into that word entertaining, and he kind of broke it down. I think it was the Latin roots or whatever it was, but he kind of led to entertain is not that far from intertwine. And people think of, well, you're just entertaining. I'm sitting on my couch watching TV, and the humor just kind of washes over me. It's there and then it's gone. But in reality, no, it actually creates a bond between the entertainer, which in this case could be a comedian or it could be the public speaker, and the audience, that they really are holding on to it and are embracing everything that you're talking about, and then they truly are taking that away. So my takeaway from this, and my tip with this, is use humor strategically, and recognizing that entertain means to intertwine, not just to wash over. I like to try to get the audience laughing as quickly as possible to set the tone that they're part of the speech, right? One of the things I learned in that class was about laughs per minute, which feeds more into comedy. I don't necessarily measure my LPM, but it's something that I do take into consideration. Of if I've got an entertaining anecdote with it, is there some sidebar I can do from it, even if the story itself isn't funny? Is there something that I can weave in with my personality, and then this happened with it, to just amplify the audience's attention within the story or the anecdote that I'm giving, that then leads to the takeaway?
I love that because I use a lot of humor as well. I don't use necessarily jokes, but I think, some self-deprecating humor
Yeah.
is always popular. Getting people to just kind of laugh in general, I think is great, because laughter is great energy. I would also say, kind of going back to my point about being yourself, if you're not a funny person and can't tell a joke, then please don't try to tell a joke during your
Don't do this
presentation.
one.
Don't do this one.
Or let the humor be more naturally baked in with it. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. I would say that. So, again, I love the fact that when people can laugh, that heightens. I'm sure there's a lot of chemical stuff going on in your mind that, like you say, entangles you to the person and creates a bond. But at the same time, when people are doing that, you also know that they're paying attention. I know that one of the greatest feelings I got that made me want to continue doing this is I was doing an orientation class at Valley Fair for 400 people in our IMAX theater. And I can't even remember what I said or did, but all of a sudden 400 people erupt in laughter. And I'm like, that is intoxicating. Like, that felt really good. So if you can do that, yes, it creates a bond, but it also shows you that they are with you and they are listening.
100%.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right.
So
What's your next one?
my next one, kind of maybe two that are logistical. And I would say, when you are putting together your program, so you've got your program created in your mind, and now you're starting to put together a PowerPoint that might go along with it, or some visuals, is to keep it simple and also have a backup plan. So I have seen far too many people try to really make their program complex, right? They want to put in all the bells and whistles and the transitions and all these different things that ultimately, when you are in a situation where maybe you're not familiar with the computer that you're using, maybe like at IAPA, they use their own computer, so you have to send in your presentation. Maybe something that you did doesn't work on theirs for whatever reason. Make it as simple as possible. I once was the liaison for a gentleman who was doing an IAPA program, and this was many, many years ago before we, vetted the presentations as much as we do now. And he got up there and like he had so many pictures and videos and things that were just memory hogs in this computer that it completely shut it down. And like he was like 5 minutes into his presentation and he couldn't get it going. And that leads to my second thing, which is have a backup plan, which he did not have. And I felt really horrible, like for this guy. I mean, like my heart was going out to him because, like, here are all these people waiting to hear from him, and he didn't know what to do without having the PowerPoint there. Like his whole presentation was dependent on having the slides and having the cues and having everything that was in there, which if he had all the stuff perfectly, synchronized like a show, it probably would have gone off beautifully. But in this particular scenario, the presentation was not working well. And again, he didn't have a backup plan. So just a couple of logistic things for me that works. And I do this now. I keep it as simple as possible. I put a picture up there, a couple of bullet points. I try to keep the transitions to a minimum. Just keep it as simple as possible so that when you go in there, and by the way, whatever session you're doing, go test it first. That's always another a great best practice. Go test it, make sure it's working, but keep it as simple as possible. And I will say, specifically IAPA, they do a great job of giving you parameters of things you should and shouldn't do with the presentation to kind of help with that. But then also, it goes right back to what you said about being able to do the presentation without the slides. So if you get to a point and let's say the computer just crashes, right? And you've got no slides whatsoever. It's probably going to take a while for that computer to come back up if it does at all. But if you can just wing it and keep going, that's the best scenario. Right? A couple of years ago, IAPA started using Slidio. Am I saying that right? Slidio is the engagement tool where you can use your phone and things like that. And I put it in my first presentation and like it wasn't working. I'm like, all right, go to the next slide and we're gonna go on without it. It wasn't something that was so needed in my presentation that I had to wait for that to be to work. So those are just a couple of logistic things as you're thinking through it. Like keep it simple and always have a backup plan.
I have never embedded a video into a PowerPoint. I just straight up don't trust it. I've seen it not work far more times than I've ever seen it actually work.
Yes.
And a few months ago, I was giving a workshop for a client, and I use a MacBook, so I always have to bring my dongle with me that'll, fit in, and I got my adapter, and I can get the HDMI cord in it. And there was something wrong. It turned out to be on my end with my dongle adapter thing that wasn't connecting right to the HDMI, and so I had the AV guy, help me with it. It was like the colors were just flashing weird. I was like, that's kind of odd. And he's like, oh, let's really see if we can do this. And I said to him, to your second point of this part of, if we can't get it, it doesn't matter. I can do this whole 3-hour presentation without my PowerPoint at all. So it kind of goes back to the, can you do this presentation without the PowerPoint? Ultimately, we were able to make it work. I'm going back and visiting that client again in the near future. I was in preparation for it. I bought a new dongle because I know it turned out they said that the problem was me. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Never been a problem before, but I'm not going to let it be a problem again. As a result of just knowing that I'm not going to let it I'm not going to let it ruin the talk, the tech piece of it.
Yeah.
Which also is a perfect segue into my next point. I know we only have a few minutes left here before we wrap up. There will be hiccups.
Yes.
Lean into them. It's tech issues, probably some of the most common. Sometimes people could be sent to the wrong room at a conference. That has happened to me before. We were talking about that recently. There could be loud noises outside the room. When it comes to tech issues, there was that issue with the dongle. There was one time the PowerPoint clicker wasn't working. It kept skipping ahead. And I decided to lean into it. I kept saying, no, no, my secrets. These are all my top secret information that I'm ready to reveal at a specific time. I ended up having somebody in the back manually click the slide whenever I pointed to them. It wasn't the best, but it was something that was able to not ruin the presentation, not ruin the day altogether. Another time I've had a microphone that just hasn't worked that well, and it was just really scratchy and nobody could hear it. Then we took a break after the first half, and then we switched the mic and they're like, oh, that's so much better now. I don't know if the first half of my presentation got through to the audience because of the mic and the tech issues. So those will happen. Plan for all those contingencies, and then when they do come up, lean into them. At IAPA, one of my talks, my mic cut out at the very last second while I was giving like my final anchor statement line in my service recovery hero class. And then I just said it louder, and then I used humor to say that was a very anticlimactic way for me to get my point across. Everybody laughed, but they also heard it and they got it, and I didn't let it get to me either.
Absolutely. And that comes from confidence, right? Being able to kind of pivot in the moment and be able to do those things. And I'm glad you brought up the fact that things will go wrong. I make up words all the time, right? So it may be a tech issue, but it also may be a personal issue where you may forget something. And I can't tell you how many times I've probably said in a setting like that, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Or my thought train got derailed, or something like that. Like you kind of make a little bit of a joke out of the fact that you don't know where you're going next, and then you get right back on track. Again, the audience. Oh, I shouldn't say again. The audience doesn't know what you're going to say, right? So you could say something really great, and they'll be like, "Oh, that was great. They must have planned that out," or it could have just been off the top of your head. You could also say something again, like I've made up words. And they're like, is that a word? I don't know. But we're going to go with it for today. And you just kind of go with it and make a little joke of it and enjoy your time with the audience. So I think that's one of the things that people get nervous about is, am I going to say the wrong thing? Yes. At some point, you're going to say the wrong thing. But guess what? It's not the end of the world. So lean into your
Unless you let it be.
Unless you let it be. That's a great point. That's a great point. Yeah. So we've gone over some pretty cool tips, I think, for people who haven't done this before, or even people who have.
I have one more. It's just
Okay,
two
go for it.
words. It's 7 letters. Have fun. It's just make it an enjoyable experience for yourself. And,
I like
and
that.
you're on stage. I mean, you can kind of pack everything that we put in here and say, I enjoy giving this presentation, not just because I am an educator, I am the figure of authority who is imparting all this wisdom on you, but I'm just up here having fun. Spotlight's on me. I'm gaining some recognition. It reinforces my reputation, reinforces kind of how people think of me as it relates to this topic that I'm in. And yes, I'm going to use the humor. I'm going to get the audience talking. And if I'm having fun, they're having fun. The content sticks more with it.
So just a real quick one on that one. A lot of times people will say, I can't wait to hear what you have to say before a presentation. And I said, me too. I don't know what I'm going to say, so let's make it fun. And I love that. I love that piece. So thank you for suggesting this episode. I've had a lot of fun just kind of going through some of the things that work for me and absolutely hearing things that work for you. I will throw out there again, if anybody has a thought, an idea, an inkling that you want to speak at a conference or just get up in front of a group of people, I'm here to help. I'll put my link in the show notes so that you can set some time with me, and I'm happy to help with anything you're looking to get help with.
Mm-hmm. The industry needs more speakers, needs more voices, needs more people on stage imparting their wisdom and creating this content with the audience, with the constituents of the industry, if you will. And as we know, and as we wind this down here, like I said, if I hope people really enjoyed this and were able to get some light bulbs or hopefully reinforce something that you already believed about your own public speaking abilities. And just remember, of course, we are all attraction pros.